Today joining us is Brother Kuzzat Altay. He left China several years ago after being arrested and threatened by Chinese intelligence. Eventually coming to the United States, he was a refugee, and years later, he became more vocal about the Uyghur cause. His father was later then taken into the internment camps, the infamous camps where Uyghur Muslims are said to be held and tortured and punished and re-educated and de-Islamicized. And for 2 years, you didn't hear about your father and you didn't hear from him. Can you tell me about this scenario and your life story from China as a young Muslim boy to the United States?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, I was born in Urumqi. It is our capital in East Turkestan, where they call it Xinjiang. And as a child, we could definitely feel the discrimination against Uyghur people, the oppression against Uyghur people. And from elementary school, this brainwashing starts from elementary school. And they call us this, they teach us from elementary school that Islam was invented by an Arab tribal man called Muhammad, right? They teach us Muhammad is the inventor of Islam, right? So we grew up in this kind of environment, and they teach us Darwinism, for example. We were somehow, evolved through monkeys, stuff like that. And then the oppression gets like more and more pressure because Chinese Communist Party is extremely tactical. They are very, very smart people. They're my enemy. But I have never seen group of people as smart as Chinese Communist Party and the people ruling in there. So their way of occupying East Turkestan is extremely persistent, consistent, slow, step at a time. So East Turkestan was slowly, right, starting from brainwashing, kind of start banning Uyghur languages, start teaching us Darwinism, like from elementary school to middle school, all this propaganda, and slowly eradicating Islam from our life. So this is the environment I grew up, right? And I was in one of the prominent family. My aunt her name is Rabia Qadir. And unfortunately, my life was somehow sort of associated with her because she was, I believe in today's measurement, she was one of the first billionaire that was like self-made, right? And in East Turkestan started doing business, and she became like good with the Communist Party, right? She started gaining power and influence. At some point, for some reason, she started speaking up for Uyghur people, about people who are getting disappeared, getting killed, and also the forced, how do you call it? Sorry, my language. Forced abortion for Uyghur people. She was very angry at that because there's
What's her
one
name?
child, Rabia Qadir.
Rabia
So
Qadir.
there's a one child policy, and her argument is this, right? It's like, hey, there's 1 billion Chinese. It makes sense for one child policy, but Uyghurs were like maybe 8 million, 10 million at that time, 20 millions. Like there's different numbers flying around. We are, she said, in China, minority versus like 1 billion people. So one child policy should be subjected to like Chinese people, not us. So that was, I think, breaking point that she started speaking up. And somehow in 1999, I believe, they decided to crack down on our family. And she went to jail. Many of our adult went to jail. At that time, maybe I was 15 years old, I was. Anyway, so I grew up in that kind of environment. And in 2003, I get into, they call it Xinjiang Medical University, which is one of the biggest medical university in the region. And it was the first year my house was busted. I was living by myself by the Chinese intelligence. And they're like, I mean, that time I had no clue about coming to United States. They're like, hey, don't trust America. We're a big country, whatever. Anyway, this Chinese intelligence officers and some Uyghurs as well, they said they were threatening to kill me, right? And from there, I decided maybe I will not survive in this environment because my family is already like declared as enemy of state. Let me escape. I went to Turkey. At that time, I had a passport. So we were lucky enough through the Turkish embassy, we were able to get our visa like very fast. For some reason, I believe that they decided to save our lives. So we, through Beijing airport, we went to Turkey. I said 2 years in Turkey. That's where I start learning like a modern Turkish, like we're Turkic people. Uyghurs are Turkic people. It's very similar, you know. So I've learned like modern Turkish in there, stayed 2 years. And through United Nations Refugee Committee, I came to the United States in 2008. And my goal was, you know what? Like my aunt, my family was heavily involved with politics. I just want to stay the hell away from politics. I want to live my life, okay? I just wanted to be selfish. So what I did is I focused on my life. I worked, I started business and stuff like that. And in 2018, my business was really good. First time I was like, Dad, I can send you money. I love you, Dad. Like first time in my life. It was not like my dad needs my money. It was just like a son. It's like, you know, it's a feeling of accomplishment. Now you can send money to your dad. And that was a time that my dad was very happy. And one day he sends me a message from WeChat. He's like, son, they're taking me. And the WeChat is the only platform that they can have access in China. So we had to install WeChat on our phone as well. And I was like, where they're taking my dad? Maybe some, you know, when I was a kid, we had this very common thing in China. Every like Chinese president, they come, they have their own ideology. And they're like, for example, there was I forget his name, maybe Jiang Zemin or somebody. Or like, 三个代表重要思想. What does that mean is it's a 3 representative important ideologies, for example, right? And they periodically take people in and put them in some sort of high pressure brainwashing camps, which is like it. Just think about it's a communist boot camp you have to go through, you know, read the books, take the exam, stuff like that. Maybe that was one of them. My thought initially was, okay, my dad is going to come back maybe after a couple of weeks. Then they're gone. My dad has disappeared. None of my relatives responding my phone. My dad disappeared. And then I start paying attention on social media. Until then, I was not active on social media. So I started using Facebook. And I see this very similar pattern of Uyghurs all around the world. Like, where's my dad? Where's my mom? My mom disappeared. My dad, my sister, my brother, my classmate. And then all of a sudden we realize like almost everybody, their families were taken. So that time, I started thinking, okay, what is going on? Let me look into deeper. And then we started looking at this. It was one Canadian Chinese student, right? And he was analyzing the satellite data and looking at the satellite image of mass internment camps that time. And we call it concentration camp, you know, doesn't matter what language use, and Uyghurs call it concentration camps. And all these images start popping up, and the United Nations were giving up some reports and saying, sometimes they said 1 million, sometimes it's 2 million. Nobody have a real data. Whether it's 1 million or 2 million, the suffering is real. On my own capacity today, I am speaking up on social media, any mean that I can, because I still believe that, you know, I genuinely believe in this. I think it's in Surah Ma'idah. Allah says saving a life is saving humanity, right? It's like saving humanity. I'm just thinking our advocacy did not stop the genocide. China did not close the concentration camps. People are still suffering. But you know what happened? That I genuinely believe the speed of killing slowed down. Maybe they were going to kill 100,000. Now they're killing 90,000. Now they're killing 80,000. I don't know. But I genuinely believe it's not as easy as before to kill Uyghur people because we're speaking up, because China care about their international, I think, PR, because they have Belt and Road Initiative. They're investing, right? They want to have allies in the Muslim countries against the United States of America. They want to do business with the U.S., right? We have Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, that where it passed U.S., the biggest importer of Chinese goods is United States. And China is export economy, right? So all these things matter. And I believe that we slow down the genocide. They start killing slightly slow. Even 10,000 people, 100,000 people. It is 100,000 universe that we saved. And I believe that is why we need to keep speaking up.
And now a quick message from our sponsors. Assalamu alaikum. You've heard the lectures on riba. You know it's a problem, but no one's ever given us a solution. That's exactly why I'm partnering with Dr. Rami, a successful dental surgeon and the founder of My Debt Clinic. The Debt Clinic is removing hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt every single day and bringing debt relief to millions across the nation. Whether it's credit card debt, personal loans, or private student loan, the consultation is completely free, no upfront fees. And here's what I love about them. They don't just help individuals. They support masajid and humanitarian organizations in the United States and all across the world. This is a company that actually shares our values. Don't suffer in silence. There are brilliant Muslims out there trying to serve this ummah, and Dr. Rami is doing exactly that. So if you've been burdened by debt, then take the first step today. Visit mydebtclinic.com/Ansari and speak to a debt doctor. And when you reach out, let them know that Ansari sent you. Assalamu alaikum. Provision Capital is a Sharia-compliant real estate firm built on trust, scale, and purpose, with investments in residential real estate all across the United States, and their focus is ethical investing. Provision Capital has a historical annual track record for the past 10 to 15 years. Visit provisioncapital.com and join over 400 investors nationwide to begin ethically investing your money today. Invest in Provision Capital today and invest in an ethical future. Now back to the show. Why is China specifically going after the Uyghur people?
First of all, the resources, the amount of the oil that East Turkestan has, it's unfortunately our curse. For the energy security, for the national security, the energy is extremely important for China, right?
You guys have energy, minerals, and
Energy,
crops.
minerals,
Cotton.
uranium, right? 20% of the cotton is from East Turkestan through the slave labor. And also, East Turkestan, if you look at how strategically it's located, we have border with Mongolia, we have border with Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, right? And even Afghanistan, Pakistan, India. Like it's such a strategic location.
I
Now, if you
believe it
look at
borders 8 nations, and then it's also in the most strategic location for the Silk Road that China's trying to rebuild into Europe and the Middle East and Africa. That's where my question is, like, and I understand that. Well, I actually completely understand that you must be very angry, and I got angry just listening. If I were you, I would be furious, and I would be very angry at China and hate China, actually, if I was you, for what they did to my father and my friends and my people. My question is what's the solution? Because what I'm hearing from you, and you did say it outright, is a separatist movement. And the question is this the best thing for the Uyghur people? Like, is that genuinely the best thing to separate from China? Or is the best thing to make a peace treaty with the Chinese government?
Yeah, it's a genuinely beautiful question, lots of, when you ask Uyghur people this question, they get very offended. They get very angry. But when you say, I would get angry, I agree. I was angry before. But right now, I think this psychology is beneficial for anyone is fighting for any cause, maybe Palestinian, maybe Uyghurs, maybe other parts of the world that people have injustice. I start looking at these things like in this way, right? Imagine you're a doctor, you're in ER, okay? And people are coming to ER and they're bleeding, whether they were fighting with each other or whatever happened to them. So if you are so sad, angry, or emotionally attached to the patient, like, are you going to save life there? Or are you going to just cry for every patient and feel anger for other patients? You cannot objectively do your job better. So the way is this disconnect emotional bound with the patient because you genuinely want to save life, looking at it that professional way. So the way I start looking at the Uyghur issue is, you know what? I need to be like psychologically healthy. I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to be emotional and angry all the time. So now in order to do that job, I know I will get reward, like an absolute certain way of believing in hereafter. So in that way, let me do my job, right? Let's not get angry. Let's not take too personal when you like when you're fighting against satanic group of people. You don't want to be too personal. Do your job. So I want to kind of say that part. Me personally, I would be very happy if our effort, I'm just being realistic, right? I don't want to be utopia. Oh, well, we're going to be independent. We're going to, like, I don't know. Allah knows the best. I will be very happy if our effort just can bring Uyghurs back pre-concentration camp era, where at least they can get passport, where at least they can write books, where at least they have some sort of freedom. That the time that I was living in East Turkestan, though I got arrested by the Chinese Communist Party or their intelligence people in 2003, I think, sorry, it was 2005 that I believe. And that time, though there were oppression, I would say it was 1,000 times better than today.
Yeah.
Because we were still able to go to Juma prayer, for example, even it's illegal. Illegal means that if you're a student, if you're a teacher, if you're government workers, you cannot go. But you know, like those times you didn't have this high-tech cameras, you know, facial recognition, stuff like that. So it was still better. Now, if you're looking at the Uyghur history, there were multiple times that we were okay for being part of China. There are many Uyghurs, okay? They're not separatists. They're okay with being a normal Chinese citizen. The problem is this: every single time when we accepted the Chinese citizen as identity, maybe 3, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, they will come back to us, try to eradicate us. They will continue to kill us. They will continue to eradicate our culture. They will continue to attack Islam. They will continue to burn mosques and, you know, burn
And that's why
Quran.
I think just that's why I think it's so important for us to everything is interest based, right? Just look for whatever the interest of the country is, and that's where this conversation started when we started talking about the resources located in East Turkestan and its proximity to the one of the biggest empires in the world today, one of the biggest nations, superpowers, and it's just like there's no way to really fight them on those lands right now for us as Muslims. So what if the strategy, because China relies heavily on Muslim land, right? It relies on Muslim oil. It relies on Muslim money in some ways, investment. It
Absolutely.
invests a lot into the Middle East. So what if we just, like all of our history with China, coerced them or traded with them? I mean, created a treaty with them through trade.
So, you know, there's a Chinese proverb called called 你死我活, means that you die, I live. These two cannot coexist. Does it make sense? I mean, Mahmoud, brother, this is a Chinese proverb. 你死我活, you die, I live. So if Chinese government let us leave, you know, I think I have better things to do in life. You know, genuinely, I'm not like a leader or anything. I just want to live my life, bro. Like, seriously, right? I want to take my kids to vacation. I want to ride horses with them. But the problem is, they genuinely want to kill us. It means that they don't give us opportunity. They just want to eradicate us, right? Sterilizing them,
Well, no.
sterilizing the entire
So the
nation, right?
separatist movement, because when I looked into the history of the Uyghur people with the modern day Republic of China, there has been, even by Al Jazeera standards, quite a bit of separatist attacks, bombings, coming from certain groups within the Uyghur population when they wanted to get away from the Chinese Republic, and that caused even I'm citing Al Jazeera right now. That incited the Chinese government to really start cracking down, and I believe there was like tens of people that were killed in one of the bombings that really made them put those cameras in and the surveillance and build those camps. What do you say to that?
So that's it. That's a good point that you made, right? First of all, I think that's the problem with the Al Jazeera or many Muslim nations, right? I think it was 2023 or something. Uh, Mahmoud Abbas, he went to China and praised Chinese Communist Party on their anti-terrorist effort on East Turkestan, right? There was a time of concentration camps were on peak. And I believe that the Chinese Communist Party is so good at some sort of, whether it's through Belt and Road Initiative, investing in those countries, and creating those narratives of Uyghurs are separatists, these people deserve these concentration camps. So this is a justification that they want to create. So Al Jazeera could be good on Palestinian issue, could be good at other issues, but how do we know that the rest of the Muslim countries and even the Al Jazeera, they're not under Chinese influence, which we know every single time in the United Nations, if there's any resolutions about Uyghur people, it's a Muslim nations siding with the Chinese Communist Party. That's the part, yes, that's the part I want to put it on side. And the second part I see is this, right? You genuinely touched a really good point, which is like bombing, killing, knife, whatever, right? Having a knife in East Turkestan, you need to have an ID to buy a knife. Nobody has gun. Everybody is under extreme surveillance. Okay? And you're telling me that Uyghurs are capable of carrying out the event of bombing somewhere? Can it be? I I I believe that is inside job by China to create justification to kill Uyghur people.
That's interesting.
Even let's assume those two people in Kunming or few people were Uyghurs and they were doing for independence. Let's assume that. What is the fault of my dad, a 70 years old man? What is the fault of my teacher, my classmate? Why it is justification of putting millions of people in the concentration camp, torturing them, organ harvesting them, and cremating their body? Where is the justification? So independence movements is a different thing. There are people they want to be independent. That's a different thing. Just because you have a dream of independence, it doesn't mean you can lock up millions of people have no independence thought at all. These are people that served Chinese Communist Party as a secretary, as a police officer, as a Chinese Communist Party members. These are just because they're Uyghur, they're taken to the concentration camps. So this is more than independence that Uyghurs are seeking to separate China. This is Chinese policy of Nisluoho. Means that either Uyghur is going to be completely that, or we're not going to be able to run this nation. So China, they're running this. This is what they're doing. They just want to eradicate Uyghurs, or they're not looking at if there's a possibility of this P2 group of people living peaceful together. If you ask me
What do
today,
you think is the way forward then for the Uyghurs?
the way forward for me is because China did not leave any other way for us is just resist. We need to have independence because
Okay,
if
so
we
it is
don't,
separatist. So
it's not
that
separatist.
requires.
This is taking our land back. This is taking our house back. This was not China, by the way, right?
Is
So
this
when
going
you
to be
take,
through military action or political action?
what
How
do I
would you
know?
do this?
What do I know? You know how I do it? This is what I do. I
Uh,
am responsible for me, right? I'm not responsible for 20 million other people. I've heard there's Uyghur billionaires, they have yachts, they have planes, right? I'm not responsible for all the Uyghurs. I'm responsible for me. I am doing my part in the community to spread awareness, to educate people, to create maybe an entrepreneurship network where Uyghurs can I would say start a business and have a good life, and so they can support their cause. And soon I want to start a language organization where we want to preserve the Uyghur language and promote the Uyghur language, right? So it's not like I want to go fight, like having war with
yeah,
Chinese
but
Communist Party. I don't
brother
know.
Kuzat, like the thing is if the Chinese Communist Party is listening to what you're saying in the United States about separating, about being, and you're rallying Washington, you're lobbying in Washington, let's say, right? Why wouldn't they then crack down on your father and the family more? If the diaspora is calling for this, why wouldn't they just crack down more?
Because it was not other way around. They cracked down us for no reason. We are not political. We don't want to separate. And then,
Fair
even
enough.
then,
So they
they want
cracked
to
down
kill you.
less after you guys started doing that.
Exactly.
That's a
Exactly.
fair point. Yeah.
Say they don't give you other choice. I'm telling you. Take a look. 你死我活. It's a Chinese word. You die, I leave. It's not,
That,
there's no coexisting in there.
that argument makes sense to me, actually. If the experience, you can't argue with experience. If the experience has been that once you resist is once they back off, then khalas. I mean, I guess we must continue this resistance and continue speaking out. And like you're saying, these countries, like for example, the real thing stopping China from being the number one superpower in the world is their PR. It's the politics, actually. It's the soft power. It's the movies. It's the shows. It's the songs. And so, as long as this is in their way, this PR battle, they usually won't end up the number one superpower because the U.S., no matter what we say about it, it still has this benevolence image. It's going down, it's going away, but it's still there in some capacity.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to kind of put it there. See, I'm not philosopher. I'm not Uyghur leader. I'm not such a guy can see the future. I mean, just look at me as an individual guy who want to do something for his nation, right? So it's not like I'm a geopolitical expert. My job is fight for my people, voice their concern. Nobody's speaking up. I want to speak up. That's it. Like, if independence, I would love to go back to my
Well,
country.
that's actually one of the reservations I have with when I looked at your rhetoric. That was one of the reservations I had with you. Is this whole nation state vibe, right? Like you care about the nation of East Turkestan, you care about your nation, and the ummah needs to be ummatic. There, I don't really look at us as nation states. I look at us as one big body, one big land, and it is seamless. It does flow from Morocco all the way to East Turkestan, all the way to Turkey, all the way to Sudan. So there is even like a full body of the Ummah right there. And that's the thing. I think you should just be fighting for the Ummah overall, not just and the Ummah should be fighting for the Uyghurs, not for a nation. That's my issue is that you're mentioning nation states like, oh, China doesn't own what's past the Chinese wall, but it's just such a post European way of looking at the world. I don't think I think superpowers conquer land just like Muslims conquered land, just like every powerful people Allah has allowed them to conquer land. The only question I have for them is, how do you treat people once you conquer them? That's the only question that I have. That's why I'm not talking about separatism. Because whether it's China or East Turkestan or you want to call it, balloon land, that doesn't matter. The question is, are the people being treated correctly? Are, like you're saying, and this is the part that I agree with you, our women and children being treated correctly? Are Muslims being treated correctly? That's the real question there. Not what do I call myself? What's the nationality? Yeah, I don't care about the
Well, see,
nationality thing.
I agree with you. There's nothing that I disagree with you. Okay. Here's the thing. Um, when, let me put it in this way. I'm not taking anything personal or anything. Just let me express my observation as an Uyghur. So from my lens, you can see what's going on in the minds of similar Uyghur people is
Okay.
this. As soon as it comes to lecturing Uyghur people, mashallah, everybody has very strategic opinions. They talk about Ummah, they talk about, when it comes to lecturing us, I've never seen a prominent Muslim organization or people or group or nations talking about similar thing. Why we're not part of Ummah? Aren't we part of Ummah? So you can ask, majority of, we have 2 billion Muslim. Uyghurs are maybe 20 million at maximum, right? If 20 billion people, like they don't even care about Uyghurs, right? Now, think about Pakistan. When I post, for example, anything about Uyghur people, I get so much attack from some of the Pakistani Muslim brothers. They're like, oh no, China is so good. China's this, China's that, mashallah. If Chinese attack me, I was like, you're patriot. You're fighting for your nation. I understand. I understand you grew up in the Chinese communist propaganda. I cannot blame you for fighting for your own nation. I have Pakistani guys, I have different groups of Muslims attacking me as being, as I voice what's going on in East Turkestan. So who actually give any lecture about Ummah to Mahmoud Abbas, for example, when he went to China, praised Chinese Communist Party. Who actually give any education or lecture to Egypt when they deported hundreds of maybe close to 1,000 Uyghur students from Al Azhar to China? Now these people probably get killed, right? Who actually gave a lecture to Saudi Arabia when they praised the policy of Chinese Communist Party in East Turkestan? I would love to be part of Ummah, but maybe Ummah doesn't want us as a part of their body, right? There's a, there's a there's a hadith of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Muslims are one body. Okay, if one part hurts, the whole body hurts, isn't it? Now, when I look at, see, I'm not such a piety taqwa guy. I'm like, okay, Muslim, okay? I don't claim otherwise. Now, when I see what's going on in Gaza, it breaks my heart. I can genuinely feel that what Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam talk about, that when part of body hurts, my body hurts. Now, if East Turkestan is hurting, millions of people are in the concentration camps, and they're going through that genocide, and if other Muslims are not hurting, if these Muslims in Turkestan, they are genuine Muslims, which is the best Muslims are taken to the concentration camps and killed, if their body is hurting and you're not hurting, maybe they're not the same body. I was just thinking that this two things cannot be coexist at the same time. So,
Well,
like
I mean,
giving
I will
Uyghurs
tell you though that
lectures,
I will tell you this. I agree with everything that you're saying. The only part that I will say is a difference between the state of the Uyghur people and the Palestinian people is that actually many Muslims were quiet and many Muslim nations were slowly coming in on the Palestinians and on Gaza and on the West Bank and allowing Israel to fully take over it and trying to normalize relations and make the PR in their nations, right? And it was only once the Gaza genocide was on full display and bombs of tens of thousands and now hundreds of thousands of people killed was the Ummah starting its PR movement, not even a military, just the PR movement. So I think I understand what you're saying, but it was the case for literally everyone else, including the Bosnians, the Palestinians. You guys are in the apartheid phase right now, right? It sounds like an apartheid. And the apartheid phase for the Palestinians is also 75 years of quietism. The Muslim world wasn't saying a word, right? So I don't think that's particular to the Uyghurs. And the reason why I'm pushing back with you, and I think I was pushing back with you more than I would have originally, is because when I did look into you more, I found something that honestly kind of disappointed me, is that you have visited Israel and have talked and actually ran an article at the Times of Israel and at the Jerusalem Post, two very famous and popular newspapers in Israel. And you've said things like no pain can be compared to the Holocaust. As such, no people can understand the pain of Uyghurs better than Jewish people. I recently visited Israel for the first time. The endless layers of history were fascinating, and I fell in love with the Jewish people. What do you say to that? What was going on there? I want to give you the benefit of the doubt because you are Muslim. Well, what in the world are you on about here? I can go on. I can quote to you even more here. No one is better positioned to further this cause than the Jewish people and the state of Israel to save the Uyghurs. Both the Jewish people and the state of Israel have faced a real threat of annihilation, which you're then referencing Muslims, which is your own people. You know the pain and anguish involved in facing oppression on a genocidal scale. That is why I believe you are uniquely positioned to stand up for the Uyghur people in their hour of need. What's going on here?
that's a good point you brought up, right? I was thinking, most likely that you're going to bring this up. So let me put it in this way. I believe one day I was listening to this lecture of Imam. He was just comparing, hey, there's two original sin. When I say sin, original sin, mistakes, let's say it this way. And first of all, it was Iblis. He made a mistake. And when he made a mistake, and he has the sophisticated analysis, justification, oh, I was fire, he was, from clay, yada, yada, yada. But when Adam made a mistake, he didn't justify. He didn't say, oh, I had this strategic reason to eat this fruit that you told me to not eat because of XYZ. Let me write an article about it. He didn't say that. So he said, pretty much sorry. He accepted that he was wrong. And I believe as a human, we sometimes make a judgment call and we make mistakes. And I genuinely believe that was wrong. What I did was wrong, number one. With that being said, I am not proud of what I said. I believe that was a wrong statement, okay? But in terms of context, I'm not justifying it. I just want to give context so people can understand. So when we are speaking up for Uyghur people, I was going through tremendous pain. And when I see that United States of America, right, Canada, for example, Netherlands, it was every non-Muslim country supporting Uyghurs, and they actually give a damn about people, millions of them getting killed. And I had zero hope from the Ummah. I was like, you know what? If they don't deport us, like, let's not even care. Just think about whether they're going to help Uyghur people. If they don't deport us to China and kill us, alhamdulillah, this is the highest expectation we can have from the Muslim community, right? And then at that time, I look for every single opportunity to advance Uyghur cause in a selfish way. Because I was like, okay, if Mahmoud Abbas is saying this to China, if everybody has to look for their own benefit, maybe I have to do that too. So I hired a PR firm at the time. I had a Turkish guy who was working for me together. We were strategizing. And those PR firms, that particular PR firm was looking for opportunity for us to make connections, giving us international stage so we could advance Uyghur cause to save lives. Whether that particular thing is absolutely wrong, my intention was not praising Israel, oh, you're doing a good job in Gaza, mashallah. That was not the thing. I genuinely wanted to save even one Uyghur lives, because when you talk about Ummah is siding with China and praising Chinese Communist Party, killing Uyghur people, I was like, maybe I have to act in a political way, okay? So this opportunity came out. We had some arrangement in Israel. And guess what? I wanted to go to Palestine as well that time. So we hired a tour guide from Ramallah, that I believe. So we're in Tel Aviv. And this was before October 7 event. So we went to Tel Aviv. It was so amazing that it's interesting that the first thing I did is went to a Samarkand restaurant in Tel Aviv. Samarkand, do you know Samarkand?
No.
No, Samarkand is a very famous Uzbek city, and Uyghur and Uzbek are very similar. And there were like Uzbek Jews in there. I was like, that's crazy. These people, how come they speak same language with me? They look same to me, like me. And they're Jewish, right? They're having Uyghur kebab, lagman, like Uyghur food in Tel Aviv. It's a crazy experience for me. And then we walked around and, see, here's the thing, okay? I believe this is very similar when China is inviting those Muslim scholars, international.
You got the propaganda tour, huh?
No, it's not a propaganda tour. I don't know, but I'm just like, let me do this, okay? Instead of, let me just explain what happened, right? So when I was there, I see these taxi drivers, they're living good life. They're like every other taxi drivers, most of them were Muslims, right? And I went to the old town, like, this, is that old town? It's called Sulaiman Town. What is that like in Jerusalem?
I think like Old Jerusalem.
Yeah, Old Jerusalem. I see Muslims are doing businesses. I was like, mashallah, these Muslims have pretty good right. And then we met one of the, I think he was a Mohammed Darawshi or somebody. He was a Palestinian Muslim, where he was a member of parliament in Israel. I was like, damn, you can become member of parliament in Israel? That's crazy. So we met that guy and we went to a restaurant in there. And I believe I went to Nazareth or not. I just don't remember. And then when the time it comes to go to Ramallah, then I started looking at just evaluating the situation, whether is that safe or not to go there, because I've seen that the Palestinian government was very close to Chinese Communist Party, and I have to protect my life, right? So I do know that I was getting threatened for the entire my life by the Chinese Communist Party. So even for the security reason, I canceled my tour. We paid the guy. I think the guy we actually arranged to come to this side and take us to Ramallah and have a tour, I just didn't feel safe to go there because how do I know I'm not going to be deported to China? Now, that particular interview, it happened as something Astoria Hotel, one of the very expensive hotels, beautiful hotel. And they were like, hey, do you want to have, like our PR firm, do you want to have this opportunity to have an interview with Jerusalem Post, right? It was not Times of Israel. It was Jerusalem Post. And one old man came and we had probably, if not 2 hours, 90-minute conversation. And one of the things I said is, as a child, I always thought that, this Jewish people, whether you like them or not, they're capable, they're successful, they're scientists from Jews. We should be able to learn from them. I still believe there's lots of things that we can learn from Jewish people. It's nothing wrong with that. I just believe, see, if you look at from the beginning of the conversation, I said, Chinese are smart, let's learn from them, right? So I genuinely believe there are something that we can learn from history where maybe it could be an opportunity for Uyghur people to save our lives, to preserve our nation. So we had so much conversation. I did say, if you're going through Holocaust, nobody is better understand Uyghur people if somebody goes through Holocaust because you're having similar experience. Now, if you look, you can say the same. If you ask a Palestinian person what they're going through with Uyghurs, and I'm not trying to compare them. If somebody going through the pain, they're more likely to understand you. So I did say those things. But out of 90 minutes conversation, if you only choose particular part of the conversation as if I'm going there, it sounds like I went for sujud for Israel. I was like, okay. So that was
It does. I'm not gonna lie.
it does. But I'm not proud of it. But it is pretty selective words from there, put it there. Lots of things I don't deny. But when you only pick and choose what I said as if I'm praising Israel. Now, one of the things is this, right? If before October 7, I do believe that, when I look at, for example, I look at Kurdish people.
This article was written before October 7th, by the way. It was actually, unfortunately for you, written the year, February 2023, I think.
Yeah.
So just that year. So let me comment on what you're saying here, because I think this is a very profound moment for anyone listening, which is, I accept your apology, and I believe what you're saying is sincere. And the reason is because I actually assumed this was the case. Alhamdulillah, I was trying to assume the best of you, and I could see the anger, and I can feel the anger in the article towards Muslims. So let me tell you what I observed from the article. What I observed was that you were angry at Muslim nations and Muslim people for being complacent about the Uyghur situation. You recognize that the best way to lobby and pass bills in Washington, D.C. was actually through the Jews. And so you took those means. You went, I don't know why you went to Israel. That one's maybe because you're also not as connected to the Palestinian issue since, me as an Egyptian, I'm very connected to it. But yeah, that can end up being the case a little bit there. It's like similar to me visiting China. It could happen, right? And to you, that's a ridiculous thing for me to go visit China, right? And be like, wow, and film China and get an interview with the Chinese people. So I understand, like, the same mind that makes me understand what you're saying is also the same mind that makes me understand, like, realism, being realistic about our situations. So I get the situation you were in. I definitely think that was a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. That was still wrong. But it's understandable the scenario you were in mentally at that time, especially if your father was getting tortured and you had no idea what was happening to him. It was kind of like a do or die moment for you. The question is, let me ask you this though. Are you or have you ever been in contact with the Mossad? And are you in any way an Israeli agent? It has to be asked.
So here's the thing, right?
No. Please do answer that.
Yeah. So it is. Let's put it in this way. Many people, they believe that I have connection with CIA, Mossad, all these things, right? Sometimes I think of, if I had connection with Mossad or CIA, probably I would be more powerful. Probably, I do apologize for my language. I'm like, this is how my dad raised me. Probably I could screw China more if I was genuinely, connected to Mossad.
What do you mean? No,
But
you couldn't. China's very powerful. Israel and
so,
America can't do much to
so,
it.
so I'm just saying that,
Okay.
no, no, no. Like Allah is my witness that I am not the best Muslim, but I genuinely believe in, oneness of Allah, the day of judgment, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I do believe that we will be held accountable in day of judgment, and that Allah knows that, I've never seen. It's not even part. I've never. If the Mossad agent came to me like as a reporter, as a teacher, I don't know. But knowing somebody's Mossad or CIA, I've never had that kind of relationship with them. Okay.
Okay.
But I want to kind of go back to the conversation that we had about this Jerusalem Post. That time, I don't know how come it became like Time of Israel. I just don't understand why. But I, I, if I saw what happened in October 7th, you know, yeah, maybe I act in a political interest of Uyghur people. Maybe I was now like just like all the Muslim nations throwing Uyghurs under the bus. They're working their own national interest, and it was a mistake that I did for my national interest. However, at least if I have this, let's say, a gram of iman in my heart, a little bit of iman left in your heart, and when you see that this entire the nation or entire city is getting bombed, whether you're Hamas, whether you're a child, whether you're old women, it doesn't matter. If anyone with gram of iman see that, will never go to Jerusalem Post and say, "Oh, Israel is such a great nation that they understand Uyghur plight." I wouldn't have said that. So it was wrong. There's no justification, and I hope that Allah will forgive me. And in the sense that I'm not asking for forgiveness from any human beings. I am asking forgiveness from Allah because it was a mistake. And it was lessons to learn because as we grow, we evolve. I was a completely different person a couple of years ago. Today, I'm a completely different person. Maybe, hopefully, I'll be a better person next few years. But if this somehow that actually hurt any Muslims, genuinely they felt hurt, I do apologize for that. It was a mistake. And there's no justification. I cannot write an article to say, oh, for XYZ strategic reason. Like wrong is wrong, right is right. It is wrong. I hope that Allah forgive me.
As a child, I used to hear stories of Muslim heroes who helped build, heal, and save the world around them. I used to hear stories of Mahmud Saifuddin Qutuz practicing with his wooden sword when he was just a little boy. So I asked myself, what's my wooden sword? And then I realized what our enemies have realized, that the online world is also another battlefront, and the Muslims are actually winning. And we believe and intend for this show to be on the front lines. We only made it this far through the help of Allah and our dear Ansari members. If you believe in what we're building, become a member of the Ansari podcast. Join our membership program by clicking the link below and help us grow into something that can change the world. Now back to the show. Yeah, I'm very surprised by your response here. I didn't know what your response was going to be, but it's very impressive, mashallah. And may Allah accept your sincere tawbah and apology, and I hope others do as well. I mean, I do. I was shocked, yes. I was like, what? Because I was looking at your stuff. Your stuff looked amazing. And obviously your call for, the suffering of Muslims is universal. That I have no issue with that. So yeah, it's
But
really good to hear from you that.
over time, I realized this thing, as I'm saying that I am not any geopolitical strategist or anything like that. Through my observation, what I realized is this, right? Before October 7, like when we're talking about Muslim sufferings in the media, especially in the Western media, it was Uyghur, right? Concentration camps, slave labor, right? And after October 7, and the international medias, whether Muslims community, whether it's like allies of Muslims, it could be non-Muslims, right? Now we're focusing on the sufferings and a genocide in Gaza. At some point, I realized when the international community focus on the pain in Gaza, it creates an opportunity in China to oppress Uyghurs even more. However, when the international community is focusing on Uyghur issue, it makes it Israelis' job easier to oppress the Palestinian there. So actually, it's like literally, it's just helping each other. Let's like this thing is making people confused in the community. Where do we focus, right? And end of these two superpower, both are superpower. I believe that Israel is superpower too, are benefiting each other on this thing because now international communities look at, oh, who's going to kill more? Who has more genocide, right? It's very unfortunate that both of us, whether it's Palestinian or Uyghurs, end up suffering more. And that's the time I realize it comes down to your part is we should not like, yes, of course I am Uyghur. Yes, of course that I need to speak up for Uyghurs, but you cannot be selfish in this thing to say, oh yeah, whatever, let's save as much Uyghur as possible. Let's not worry about Palestine. So that was the time that I realized we cannot do that. It's like at least maybe once in the while you need to voice the pain of Palestinian and hope that once in a while some Palestinians speak up for Uyghurs as well. And that's how we start building, as you say, the community where we care about each other. Because I don't expect this from any government. I don't expect this from any, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or anything like that. But as Muslims around the world, this is a collective conscious that we have to develop. Because when we die, okay, I've heard, I'm not sure, it's the same thing in Arabic. As a child, they taught us nakir and munkar, when you get into the grave, this two angels will question you, right? Well, when you get questioned hereafter, they're not going to ask God, Kuzzat, why Erdogan didn't speak up for you? Why Imran Khan didn't speak up for you? I mean, we're not going to be responsible for what our government did. We will be responsible as a Muslim citizens around the world that what we did, what we said. And that is why I believe that this should not be this versus that. It should not be that. It should be together, your suffering is mine and my suffering is yours. Let's do whatever we can to help each other. And that is the thing that I've learned through this process.
Yeah, oppression somewhere is oppression everywhere. And that's why I think that really the Jewish lobby, the Zionist lobby, was utilizing you, and I think America was not just you, but the Uyghur cause in general, to just PR attacks on China. I think that was their interest. Even if you look at it like, oh, the Muslim countries weren't helping, but the Western countries were. Well, it's not out of the goodness of their heart that the Western countries were helping. It was to attack China, and actually to, like you said, to get to get the smoke off of Palestine at that time as well. Um,
So
yeah,
I think this is, I really want to talk about this important point that I believe. We have this tendency to lecture Uyghurs, right? When America is declaring genocide, passing Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, that we have lots of Muslim brothers around the world and giving us lecture. Oh, America is doing it for its own national interest, right? They want to use your Uyghur cause. Bro, you think we're idiot? I mean, I'm not saying you. For those people lecturing us, are we retarded? Like, we also know, like, we also know that when the Uyghur interest it was overlapping with American interests, this happens throughout history. It's like how human works.
yeah,
When you have
utilize it.
when you have common interests, you utilize it. Same thing. See, when China is helping Palestine, I don't care about their intention. Here's what I care. One time, I'm not sure, okay? I saw a video. It says Chinese people sent some food or something. They were throwing from the sky and was came down with a parachute, and the Palestinian Muslims, Gaza's kids were running towards it and they were taking the food. I was like, I don't care if China did it for sake of Allah or did it for political reason. People are suffering there. They have food. It's not my job to judge somebody's intention. We abuse this hadith. Actions is judged by the intention. See, action is judged by the intention by Allah, because can you see the action? Can you see my intention? You cannot see my intention. Only Allah alone can measure somebody's intention. Nobody can. But the action itself, if it's benefiting somebody at that point, I would say it's a good thing, whether China is supporting Palestine or America is supporting Uyghurs. So I feel like we should stop lecturing each other. It's like, this is how world works. I'm happy that America supported Uyghurs. I'm happy that Canada declared genocide and they want to bring 10,000 Uyghur refugees from Turkey to Canada. I'm very happy for that. I'm not going to... Do you think that I should go to a US Congress and say, hey, you guys, why you passed a law and help Uyghurs you're doing for your own interest? Is it a smart thing to do, right? So I think we just...
I agree with you. Yeah. I agree with you. I just don't want the opposite reaction either, where it's like, oh, well, then America's this beautiful, benevolent country and these Muslims are the horrible ones. Because at the end of the day, the only ones that are going to die for you and fight for you and side with you for past 100 years and hundreds of years without you having to indoctrinate or educate them or anything is Muslims. You always have that soft power over Muslims as a Muslim. So anyone who wants to choose their nation over their ummah, it's not going to work. Whether it's Pakistani, whether it's Egyptian, whether it's any of these countries, or as we see the Emiratis, right, trying to choose their nation over the ummah.
I think this part, I want to be transparent, right? I'm American citizen. You go to my social media, you will see American flag, right? So one part is this. My first American impression was when I was a child. I watched this Home Alone, It was so cool, It was like, oh, America's so nice. So I always wanted to come to America. And Allah made it happen. I came to the United States. And, when many Muslim countries were deporting Uyghur, I'm just saying, whether they have intention, what's their intention, I'm not going to talk about that. I was accepted as a refugee to the United States. I'm genuinely grateful for this, because I will not be safe in many Muslim countries. I would not have the safety today I have in many Muslim countries. That's number one. So I'm grateful for that. Number two is, when I became citizen, I had this oath that I will be loyal to my country. This is my, whether you like America or not, this is my promise to this nation to become citizen. So now when I'm looking at this, my country, America, here's the way I look at it. Before, I have this utopic understanding of America is freedom, protection of freedoms, all this innovation, technology, all these things, because in the beginning, when you came from death, and then your life is good, you start business, American dream, right? And you can be successful. See, here's the thing. In many countries, even that you're Muslim, let's say I'm Uyghur Muslim, I go to Muslim countries, maybe there's some nationalism. Maybe I cannot be successful just because I'm not Arab or Afghan or in that particular nation. But in the United States, despite I am freaking immigrant, I speak broken English, I have only high school diploma, I was able to start a business. All these things made me feel like America is such a great nation. And then throughout this process, after, for example, a last election, COVID, there's lots of event, this pedo island, PDF island, archives, all these things came out. I was like, okay, maybe loving America should have clear boundary with worshiping America. As a Muslim, I love America, but it doesn't mean that I have to worship America, that I have to worship everything that America do. If I love America, is I, as a citizen, to make this country better. So how do you want to make this country better? Is to advocate what is right for this nation. We need to, as American Muslims, to stop thinking that, we're like outsiders, stuff like that. Many second, third, fourth generation Muslims are here. Many converted or reverted Muslims are here. This is their land. So it's our job to have a say on the table. Like maybe Muslims should start running for Congress, for example, right? Should start running for mayors, for example, instead of, okay, you guys take care of the business, you guys take care of the politics. If you want to bomb this nation, go ahead, bomb for it. Maybe you want to have people to actually, as an American, speak up for America and direct America to the right direction instead of making this military complex rich. Because with every single time when a two nation fights, you know who's the winner? The guy selling the gun. Both of them losing. Both of them, their children are dying. But the guy who's selling the military equipments, they're the only one winning. So, you know what? We cannot spend our taxpayers' money on this kind of things. So I believe that as an American now, like I have additional responsibility to improve this nation as well, like to make it better, to make it less, I would say, using taxpayers' money on the wrong cause. Instead, we can use for education. Instead, we can use for infrastructure. There are lots of people are dying and it's homeless. When you have millions of homeless, why you want to spend your taxpayers' money on bombs, right? These are the things that we can do as Muslims to make America better. So I believe this is something that we need to bring up as well. I don't hate America. I love America.
Uh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this show is, yeah, we talk about that. We talk about loving your country as a Muslim and being a good citizen to that country, and not thinking that there's a distinction between being Canadian and being Muslim or being American and being Muslim. You could be both. Actually, I feel like American Muslims live the American lifestyle better than Americans do, in many ways. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Let me ask you this then. So you're free to say things like Israel is committing genocide and that you want to see a free Palestine, correct?
Yes, I never had any pressure from anyone saying that, Israel is committing genocide against Palestine or specifically Gaza. Never anyone, any authority reach out to me, anything like that. Um, so I genuinely,
How do they feel about your stance now? How do?
I don't know. I don't know. I just see, here's the thing. As a human, at the end of the day, I am human, right? I have weaknesses. Sometimes when I speak up for Palestinian, for example, I genuinely like, so I'm not sure if this is YouTube is gonna kind of censor this conversation. I saw a father of Gaza holding a child with no head and crying. This tremendous anger and pain, like you just want to go curse the entire world, and that's how much anger you have, right? And that is the time that I cannot control myself. I was like, screw this world, screw the political, interest or anything. This is wrong, right? And then once I tweet those kind of things for my Turkish, audience, like as well, whether it's for my English audience, I do have this sense of insecurity and saying, you know what, maybe either there's a possibility there could be consequences for me. There's no consequences so far. I'm just thinking like, you know, when you think about the influence of Israel in the United States, right? Maybe there's a consequences for me. Maybe, it's going to cause me, cancel my business, whatever, right? Maybe this is going to harm Uyghur people because now I'm speaking up, right? So I am speaking up once in a while, very less, even once in a while, but I do have that fear as a human. But at the end of
Mm.
the day, you have to do what is right. And I believe that Allah will measure us with our intention and our effort. That itself is a big, big, I started speaking Turkish. Even saying one thing about there's a genocide going on in Gaza, I feel that it would hurt Uyghur people. That's how much fear that I have in my heart. In the sense of this could cause harm on the Uyghur cause. Just because I said something, if there's more Uyghurs going to die, that is the fear. It's not like my personal, oh
Oh,
my
I
God,
see.
don't touch me. It's not about that. Thank you for asking that because we clarify. Maybe many people thinking I'm fearing. Like, who do you fear? You fear God. At the end of the day, you can live like 1,000 years. Like so what? Who do you supposed to fear? You know what I'm saying?
Mm. Yeah. No, I love, like, one of the things I love about this conversation is just how complex it is, right?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
people need to sit back, and many of the times online, people try to, evil and good, and that's why I was pushing back with you in the beginning when you're calling China evil, when you're calling other places good, when you're calling Israel. There's very few places that you can really call evil and people evil in. It's much better to understand realistically. It's like when the Americans called Muslims evil after 9/11. I mean, it's such a simple way to look at other human beings. And if someone's like, "Oh, I can't believe you wrote this article." "Oh, I can't." Yeah, but humans are complex. Humans make mistakes. During the Prophet's time, over and over again, you find a Sahabi making very similar mistakes, right? As writing an article for the Times of Israel and so on, right? So yeah, I love that. I love that we got to talk this out, got to really get into the complexities of topics that would be considered too taboo and controversial to talk about.
I think, our life is accumulations of the decision we take, the consequences, right? And you try to make a judgment call at some point in your life. And it's influenced by the environment you're going through, the emotion you're going through, the life that you're going through. And you can only try to have sympathy for people in that situation to what they're going on. Like, so people think, oh, I have empathy. Like, you don't have empathy, bro. Empathy is a completely different thing. If somebody's burning in fire, you can try to understand how it feels. But unless you're in the fire, you cannot understand what they're going through. So if they did something under that tremendous pain, so it is maybe from outside, it doesn't look that way. So I genuinely believe it's like very complex world. And I was very disappointed when I see many of the politicians, stuff like that was connected to even Stephen Hawking, for example. As a kid, because I love physics.
I
And
love physics too.
yeah, I love physics. One time I got like a 96 out of 100 in an exam. I was like, how come? It doesn't make sense. Where's the four, right? So that was how
Hmm.
good I was in physics in high school. So I read the books on Stephen Hawking, right? And this scientist hero end up into that list. I was like, what the hell is wrong with this world, right? So it's just like complicated world. But at the end of the day, I genuinely believe that the way to navigate through this complexity is to have consciousness of Allah. Like, at the end of the day, you can make a judgment call, but every single time when you ask yourself, you could make a mistake. Even then, you could make a mistake. But did you do it for sake of Allah? Did you think of Allah will question you one day for your action, right? I think likely we will make less mistakes. So it's complicated. It's very complicated.
Yeah, and I thought about your concern, which is a uh, rightful concern to have. That what if it hurts the Uyghur cause? And I'll tell you this, man. Like when we just speak up out of the goodness of our heart and the good intention, and we remove these interest based things, because a lot of times, like on my podcast, I could really ask different questions. Like I could have asked you about questions that would have made me seem like a champion of the Uyghurs, and put me as a hero, and you a champion of the Uyghurs, and we call it a day. Khalas, there we go. Here's a Uyghur history. Here's how China's bad. Here's what the Uyghurs are going through, and let's call it a day. But when you actually stand up for what's true, and in this case, standing up for the Uyghur people is what's true, Allah will be with you. Whether the Zionist Jews or the Americans want to be with you and with us or not, they won't be. And the Uyghur cause is gaining more traction. I myself am going down this path of understanding this region of the world more, because that's where most Muslims live, is in Asia. And so that's what it is for me. That this is not a campaign to try to diminish what is happening to the Uyghurs, or I just want to actually understand what's happening, and find truth in it for real, and call to truth with justice, and make sure that the truth is like, I don't want to cause injustice to China, right? Or Israel, or well, stuff. Okay, I don't want to talk about that, but you don't want to cause injustice. That's why the story of Musa, before he started his campaign to end a genocide, Before he started his campaign to end the genocide, one of the first things Allah taught him was perhaps who you perceive as your enemy is actually the one wronged in something, right? And in that situation where he killed the wrong man, or yeah.
So
Sorry for my long-winded answer there.
no, no, I I believe there's a Sahih hadith of one woman. She had a cat, and she tortured the cat to death. I think tied the cat under the sun and the sand and heat, and the cat died. And according to that hadith, that lady went to hell. And there's another sinful woman that saved a dog, and Allah granted her a Jannah, forgive all her past sins, right? So if you look at our religion's teaching us, like cat and dogs, we're not talking about babies, women's, teachers. We're talking about cats and dogs. That is, in the eyes of Allah, how lives are sacred, cats and dogs. And according to our religion, if the injustice is happening to Jewish people, I promise you, if this was happening against Jews, it's our moral responsibility as a Muslim to speak up for the Jews. If this happens against the Chinese, it is our moral responsibility to speak up for Chinese as well. We wouldn't be happy. We're not going to say, oh yeah, good, burn. It's like I enjoy or getting bombed. Do you think we do that as Muslim? We don't. Allah is teaching us, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is teaching us how much valuable the life of cat is. So how we're supposed to say, I hate China, for example. I hate the entire Jewish people, for example. Here's the thing, okay? I feel super light in my heart because I don't have hatred against Chinese. Indeed, I found the Chinese culture very interesting. Chinese language is very rich, for example, right? And at Chinese strategies, there's a book called Sanshiliuji, for example. It's a strategic book that if you read it, you're going to be like, damn, this people, they're going to...
What's it called in English?
Sanshiliuji is like a 36 strategy or something like that.
The Art of War?
Similar things, right? Art of War.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have the Sun
See,
Tzu's
exactly.
right here.
When you read that, you're like, you know what? I'm scared to do business with these people, right? So I'm also fascinated by many Chinese, maybe their songs, for example, their culture, their literature, their language. Indeed, there's a the most famous Chinese poet in the history. His name is Li Bai. You know where he was born? In
Mm.
Kyrgyzstan.
Mm.
Kyrgyzstan is a Central Asia.
I feel like we share so much history with China since
No,
we've.
see, I genuinely believe he was a Turkic nomad. He moved to China and he learned Chinese, and he had this beautiful poet about when he looks up in the moon, and when he at every night, and he has this deep sorrow, and how he miss his homeland, right? He's talking about he misses his home, right? So there's lots of things that we can actually, as a humans, to kind of do, instead of hating each other, burning each other's down, killing, eradicating each other, I that's what we're supposed to do, love, right? I wish that Uyghurs can take this responsibility. At some point, I'm thinking, right? This is I was just have this reflection of, when you trace back who's behind who's behind who's behind Pharaoh, who's behind Xi Jinping, at the root of all evil, you find Satan, Shaitan, right? Every bad thing happens, it roots back to Shaitan. And now you're angry at Shaitan, and if you want to have revenge against Shaitan, the best way of revenge is to be able to, I would say, enlighten people with Islam. Recently I started thinking this way. I was like, you know what? Me as a Uyghur person, I speak Chinese. What if instead of fighting China, maybe I can start a channel talking about Islam, talking about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the beauty of Islam to Chinese people, and they accept Islam. If they become Muslims, at the end of the day, I'm hurting Shaitan. I was like, oh, this sounds like more profitable business to me, right? So I wish
Yeah.
that, as Uyghurs, that we can do that, kind of, be instead of being enemy of China, we are the one bring light of Islam to Chinese like cities all around China. Inshallah. Let's see. I don't know.
Subhanallah. So, can you expand on that a little bit more? Because would this be controversial for you to say to the
Of
Uyghur
course,
people?
it's controversial, but at the end of the see, if you get enough attack from the people and you realize, the best way to not get attacked is do nothing. And at the end of the day, if you believe that you're saying you have good intention of say something, like it's rooted to the pleasure of Allah. What you want to do is you want to please God, right? And I think, whether Uyghur people don't like me or some people is going to say something, I mean, life is short, I don't have time for dealing with that. But many Uyghurs, if we could leave our religion and if we could communicate, because Chinese people, like we are forced to learn Chinese. I speak Chinese native, right? In a way. So yeah, why not? If they become Muslim, it's good for me, it's good for them, and it's bad for Shaitan. And Shaitan is behind Xi Jinping. This is very like caveman strategy. It's not like a very strategic books. It's just like I'm just counting like a kid how to make Shaitan angry. Okay, let's make Chinese people Muslim. It's like
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful because what you're doing there, it's such a beautiful strategy where if their strategy is to slowly assimilate and turn Muslims Chinese, the best strategy moving forward is us to just turn the Chinese Muslim quickly.
you know.
Yeah.
So if you genuinely believe in hereafter, you see this. I've seen many Chinese people. They're very hardworking people. Like I've seen many fine people. You know, they care about their families. Like it's just hardworking. And then if you realize one day, if you genuinely believe in hereafter, right, Jannat and the Jahannam, and you're just thinking that would you be okay this person burning in hellfire? That you just had to communicate with that person to say, hey, the life is not about this. The life is not about chasing money. The life has a purpose, right? Maybe a small conversation. It's not your job whether they accept or not. But between them going Jahannam or in paradise in heaven is maybe somebody communicate the right message to that person. Would you be okay? Would you feel comfortable that you could have done something, but these people are burning in hellfire? You wouldn't, right? So it's not complicated. It's just a very straightforward thing that to do. That's why I was thinking at some point when I retire, like I want to retire in a few years, inshallah, business, everything, is good. And then I genuinely want to start a Chinese educational channel where I want to communicate in Chinese to Chinese people to speak about the beauty of Islam. And through that, whether they accept Islam or not, if they at least understand Uyghur people, not clapping a Chinese Communist Party saying, oh, you're doing a good job, kill these people, Hoge, means that good, Like even if they don't support the Chinese government on a genocide in East Turkestan, that is also a win for us, right? So it's not that complicated.
Yeah, this is how intelligent people think, and this is why a lot of our viewers are very intelligent people. I've met many of my viewers, and they're really smart people, really smart Muslim Americans, really
MashaAllah.
smart Americans, and this is how intelligent people, I believe, think about the world. They see its nuances, they see its complexities, they see how people can come from different positions, they can put themselves in other people's shoes and see what happened to them in certain circumstances. What's also interesting is you know Netanyahu once said it himself. He said he used to be smarter, apparently. He said rather than sending bombs to Iran, just send them movies, send them shows, send them KFC, send them McDonald's. And so many times that's one thing that every Muslim needs to know, and every person that wants to do good in this world needs to know about, which is the difference between hard power, which is military, and soft power, which is art and culture and beauty, right? Something that the French are really good at, soft power. And like the French don't have any hard power. Like Iran could knock the French out if France and Iran went into a war right now.
Iran would defeat France, I think, in a couple days, a week or two, right? But visually, France seems more powerful, and it's because of their soft power. I'm saying all that to say that we Muslims need to utilize soft power more. We need to be a part of people's art and a part of people's culture more and more and more. And we're doing it. I mean, I think Muslims are some of the most influential human beings on the planet. We're some of the top influencers on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, in soccer, and so the biggest athletes. So we're doing it.
Yeah. I think this moral obligation, I was reflecting, right? My wife was born in uh, a city called Crow Town, Kagluk in East Turkestan. It's close to the border and a couple mountains away. There are people, they worship idols, cows or stuff like that, right? And in the 900, like year 900s, okay? And there was a prince, Karluk prince. It's called Karluk that time, which is Karluks are Uyghur and Uzbek people, were a Karluk tribe. There's a Karluk prince in Artush and Kashgar, they're very close city in East Turkestan. He was a prince, and he met this person. He see that when he was going for hunting with his uh, like soldiers, okay, and he saw one man is bowing down and going up, bowing down again. I was like, what is this guy doing, right? So he was curious. He went to this person and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" His name is Abu Nasr Samani. He was from Persia at that time, which is current Iran, and he was Sunni at that time. There was no, I believe, Shia or Sunni conversation at that time, but basically he was talking to this person like why you're going down like this and coming up again? What are you doing? And the Abu Nasr Samani told our prince Satuk Burhan, I am worshiping Allah. And he's like, who's Allah? So they start having this fascinating conversation. It's not like the Arabs came with the horse and the sword and it's like, oh, Turks, if you don't become Muslim, we're going to chop off your head. It was not like that. It was one person praying in the jungle. A prince saw it. I was like, this is cool. Started conversation. And our prince became Muslim. And then his soldiers became Muslim. Then later on, he became king. And at first, Karahanate Empire, which is first Turkic empire, started in East Turkestan, right? And I just realized between me maybe worshiping cow or idols was that particular person was representing Islam to our prince Satuk Burhan, inspired to him to become a Muslim. So that's why maybe today, 90 years later, me and my family were worshiping Allah. So that is something that it makes you feel like I didn't deserve it. I didn't do anything. I did not have contract by God saying that I was going to born into this family. It was not my choice, but I was lucky enough. Now, when you look at all other people and they're doing all this weird stuff,
Wait, so, brother, who's that? So this is the history of how the Uyghurs became Muslim?
yes, yes. The
Mm.
Karahanate Empire is the first Turkic Muslim empire started in Central Asia, and then they started migrating towards west, right? And then they become Seljuk Empire. There's a continuation; they speak same language, and the Seljuk after Seljuk it became Ottoman Empire. So the institutional knowledge of from the 940 that I believe year 940 that when Satuk Burhan became a Muslim and it declared the our national religion is Islam, right? From there, our madrasas, right, our Islamic knowledge and institutional knowledge moved all the way through the Central Asia. Later on became Seljuks and later on became Ottoman Empire. These are connected historical evidence, right? So that is why it is beautiful. Instead of like, oh, I want to, conquer this nation. I want to like convert these people by force. I want to do this. I want to revenge China. Instead of doing that, I think in this complicated world, I really, if I didn't have four kids and my wife I love so much, when I'm looking at this world, I just feel like there's nothing to live in this world anymore. It's just nothing that keeps me like I want to live here. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't today if Allah takes my life, my only concern is like, I wish that my kids grow up with the father and my wife wouldn't be widow. I don't have any other concern in this world. In this screwed up, ugly, disgusting world where what happened in those islands, right? What happened in the media industry, what's happening, in all this nonsense worlds, everywhere is either earthquake, people are dying, people are suffering, organ harvestings, like it's unimaginable, like disgusting world that I believe the only way to live a good life is when you stop thinking politics, business, whatever, just be a good human being and try to kind of light up somebody else's heart one at a time. You may not be able to change the world, but one of those people, is a chain effect, right? Maybe somebody made Abu Nasr Samani Muslim, and Abu Nasr Samani before that person was some other person. All the way that chain comes to my prince 1,000 years ago. Then the entire Uyghur nation and the Turkic nations became Muslim, right? This is like, it's a good thing. Otherwise, this world is got a difficult, disgusting place to live.
Brother Kuzzat, that's all the questions that I have for you. Do you have any final thoughts before we head off?
No, thank you so much. I genuinely appreciate that you push this independence narratives. It's people want to listen to that, right? We don't want to come here just praise each other like, oh, human rights, all these things. Like I believe we had unconventional conversation. Like it's not like everything that everybody sees on social media. And I believe that, like, I genuinely appreciate that you brought up this topic on, it was not the Times of Israel that my interview was on Jerusalem Post. I also appreciate that you brought that topic up because once in a while, like, China's using this with all the trolls are, pasting that. It was like, it's okay, it's not like something that I didn't do, but I thought it is good that you brought that topic up. And also I appreciate that. Thank you, brother, for, giving me this opportunity, and thank you for the audience. And I hope, inshallah, your platform will be more successful, create more awareness, educating people, just do good in this world, inshallah.
I mean, I appreciate that, and thank you for your honesty. I think that helps a lot in this world, where everyone feels like they're not getting the truth anymore. I think you and I just have a genuine intention to help the Uyghur people, and at least I have an intention of helping Muslims everywhere, Muslim Ummah everywhere. So if my intention is just to say what everyone wants me to say, and say all the activist phrases that people want me to say, rather than genuinely being like, okay, how can we actually solve this? Like, you have to think that China's a superpower military, and you're right there next to them, and you're strategically, it's resources and in location and in every way really good for them. How are we going to actually deal with this, right? Let's get away from the slogans. What are we going to actually do? And I have the same problem with the Palestinian movement activist narratives, like the two-state solution and all this crap. I don't believe in that. There's only one state solution. How do you actually get to it? That's the question, and something that I want to talk about more and more. Brother Kuzzat Altay, thank you so much for joining the Ansari podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam, and thank you guys for listening to the Ansari podcast.